passage from the Gospel of John is one that I have turned to so many times for Easter Sunday morning. It's one of my favorite retellings of the encounter at the tomb. And we didn't use it this year, but I thought, I'll move to it the next Sunday. And then I started thinking about, well, it's Earth Day, a couple days after Easter. Or at least we're supposed to observe Earth Day. And for 55 years, there's been this date in April dedicated to celebrating the creation, the world around us, the wonder of nature, the challenges of science. And I have a confession to make. Earth Day fell on Tuesday. That's not my confession. Tuesday is staff meeting day. And I spend most of my day in room 111 with our staff. We look at the calendar. We talk about things that are happening, things that are going on. And then typically Mark and Marie and I stay and we do some worship planning. And I tend to not face the windows because it dries out my eyes, but I happen to be facing the windows Tuesday, and at some point I looked up and went, oh, the trees are in bloom. And that was my Earth Day celebration. Not very inspiring. And then there was another day this week. It happened to be Thursday when I ran to pick up some books for the celebration of soulful healing, and just as I got back to the parking lot, the tornado warning came on in my car, telling me that I should seek shelter immediately. And I was in my car, and it was pouring down rain, and I didn't want to run in. So I thought, well, where would I rather be hailed on? So I kind of drove around the building, which was a good thing because some parents had come to pick up preschoolers who were in the basement. So from my car, I could open door 4 and let them in. And they ran into the building, but I was like, no, I don't want to get wet. So I sat through the tornado warning in my car. And in typical fashion, as the good Oklahoman I am, as soon as it was over, I was out of my car taking pictures. And predicting, I didn't see any rotation. I don't know if there was a tornado or not, because, I'm trained in that. And then there was another night, and I realized that this was in the Psalm and some of the verses that Neil read. There was one night I was leaving, and it was dark, and I backed up, and I started to pull out the driveway where the new rain garden is, y'all passed. And I had to stop because there was this huge raccoon, and I'm doing this, okay, huge raccoon. He was this big. I should go fishing sometime. And he was crossing the driveway and kind of ambling his way into the peace garden. And honestly, my thought was, you go, raccoon, go meditate on the labyrinth. So my week with Earth Day has been very strange. I'm going to admit that. But I also can't think of a better time to talk about it than the week after Easter. I'm also on a very serious note aware, and I cried the first time I heard somebody say it, that we said farewell to Papa Francesco this week. A pope unlike any other who drew our attention to the need to care for creation, to pay heed to the warning signs our earth is sending us. And that common prayer this morning, one of many he wrote with that call, reminded us of that. So it seemed like a natural thing to turn to the Gospel of John. And as I said, I've used this story quite often, but I usually have focused on the idea that when Mary heard her name, when she heard Jesus speak her name, she knew it was him. But this week it was different for me as she saw these two beings, angels, whatever we call them, who were sitting there, and they said, "Woman, why are you weeping?" Almost accusing. Why would you weep at a tomb? And she says, "I don't know where they've taken Jesus." And her tears are flowing, and she turns away. Now, I'm going to admit I can't speak to you when you cry or weep. I don't see very well when I weep. if I'm really going at it, my eyes blur up, my contacts get a little bit crusty, and I don't see as well. And so when we're told that she is weeping, maybe that affected her eyesight. And she repeats her question of, I don't know where he is. Can you tell me where you've put him? And she speaks that question to the person she assumes is the gardener. Well, maybe she was right. And in this week after Earth Day, I've decided that maybe we should think about Jesus as the gardener. And think about how it might change our interaction, our communication with the earth. What would change in the world if we saw Jesus as the gardener? And you're going to have to forgive me because I was in a mood this week and I had a little bit of fun with this. Because first off, we would have to deal with some manure. Because none of us have any experience with that. There's some manure going on in the world today. But as gardeners, that's what helps make the soil more fertile. Just really dig into the manure and be willing to work with it and work around it and take the good parts of it that are going to be beneficial and know what you need to keep and what you need to not keep. So just rest assured that if Jesus is the gardener and we are followers of the gardener, we're going to deal with some manure. You have no idea how much I wanted to say the other, but I'm not going to. If we are going to be gardeners in the spirit of Jesus, we need to allow land, a garden, a crop. We need to allow land to lie fallow once in a while. We need to let it rest. A specific period of time that allows it time to replenish its nutrients and get ready for the next planting, to get ready for the next crop, to get ready for the next season. I don't have any problem at all with this. I rest all the time. Don't you all? Aren't we just sitting around just waiting for the next great thing? We're not. We tell ourselves 24/7, 365, we need to be at work, and we forget to let ourselves have that time when we rest and rejuvenate, recuperate, renovate, whatever it is, whatever R word we want to use. We have those needs as well, and while it feels like we don't have a moment to spare, and sometimes we don't, there are some moments where rest is necessary, it's vital, it's required. So in the spirit of the gardener, we need to let ourselves rest. We need to be willing to get our hands dirty. I doubt that persons in first century Israel went out to their shed and put on their gardening gloves. They would have just dug into the soil. They would have had dirt under their fingernails. They would have felt the earth and felt awe at what was about to happen. This is going to be the strangest transition ever. But I've often said that the greatest gamblers in the world are people who put seeds in the ground. Because we don't know from season to season, will there be enough water? Will there be enough sun? Will the temperature be right? And people who do that exhibit great faith. But in order to do that, we have to get our hands dirty and give thanks even as we're doing that. I quoted at the first service that I'm pretty sure that the person I know most who does this is Terry Dermowski, because she says she's not happy unless she has dirt under her fingernails. She's digging in the dirt and she is singing inch by inch, row by row. Get our hands dirty, get in and do the work. Then we also learn from Jesus, and we don't learn this from him, but I kind of like it about gardening, that we have to use the right tools. We don't use a chainsaw to prune a rose bush. We need to be gentle with the things that need gentle care. We need to be firm with the things that need us to be firm. We need to know and have the right tools, whatever those might be, for how we are spreading and sharing the gospel in the world. We need to understand about proper spacing to avoid overcrowding, so every plant, every child, every youth, every person has an opportunity to thrive. Because that's what we're doing here, is we're growing together. And those 77 trees, and notice I didn't say it this time. I guessed at the first service and I got it right. So what are you going to do? It was divine intervention. Those 77 trees are a reminder of the importance of putting in good roots, but also providing shade and shelter for one another. Oh, it'll preach that Jesus is the gardener, because that's what he's been teaching us to do. But I also want to think about, what does it look like to consider what allows things to thrive? And I'm going long today. And what protects other things? I've learned since I came here about Three Sisters planting. That you plant corn, beans, and squash together. And the height of the corn provides support for the beans, that provide nutrients for the soil and shade for the squash. They all work together. Every plant has a purpose. I've learned since I came to work here about planting marigolds next to tomatoes, because the scent of the marigolds repels pests from the tomatoes. And if you want to have a good BLT, you want to have some marigolds next to your tomato plants. But I learned yesterday that you should also plant garlic next to your roses. What? Because the smell of the garlic deters aphids and rose black spot. So you can have your tasty garlic in your cooking, but you can also have your beautiful roses on your table, because they work together. See, there's things that we don't think of as going together that work together for the betterment of all when we have a gardener that is the head of our church. A gardener who knows the value of all things. And while we're on that, if you're a person who plants seeds that feed people, literally huge crops, what do we plant that literally is feeding the person sitting next to us? And maybe that's a crop, maybe that's tomato plants, maybe it's peppers, maybe it's herbs. But Jesus, the gardener, would take that so many steps further and think about the seeds we plant that feed people, seeds of kindness, that grow from roots of justice, that require waters of healing, that are tended to by people who understand the value of beating swords into plowshares, and who know at their very hearts that there is beauty for beauty's sake in the world. You see, the one who was at the tomb who said, "Why are you weeping?" The gardener knows all of that. And if we follow him, we need to know that as well. We tend to focus on that word, rabbi, Rabboni. But maybe, just maybe, Mary on a morning long ago met a gardener. And maybe we need to follow him too. Would you pray with me? God, for one who teaches us to sow seeds of kindness, who teaches us about providing shelter for one another, for this one who knew the roots of justice and carried them into his own time, we give you thanks. In his Spirit, help us to look to the gardener, the one who provides for the needs, who sees the value in each person, each plant, each moment. May we walk in his footsteps. May we plant in his footsteps. And may we continue to grow together. Amen.